So let's get started on coloring. And the very first thing I'm probably going to do is take some of my fabric medium. I'm going to put, I'll put my everything kind of here on the paper plate. By the way, the paper plate will really help protect your work. I am always amazed at how fast people can get their work dirty, and these INKTENSE pencils can fool you. They can. The little crumbs can fly all over the place. In fact, I've got my ceiling fans on right now, so I'm going to have to be very careful. And literally, y'all, that is a problem. If you have ceiling fans and you go to either do a pencil sharpening and you're doing it with manually, literally the very fine grains that come from sharpening can land on your work, and you rub your hand against it, and before you know it, you have this very large streak going through up to the top, and you always holler for my boo-boo pen. Yep, I will tell you about the boo-boo pen, but later. Right now, let's get to coloring. So the very first color, we're looking at this right here, and I'm just going to kind of pull up my instructions to remind everybody. And that is, let's look at this here real quick. We're going to start in the center, and the center is number 1. So I'm going to put the instructions aside here for a moment, and we're going to pull out color number 1, which is the apple green. Now, the easiest thing for me to do this just tiny little section, and we don't have a lot, and let me pull this plate up so that you can see this, is I'm just going to take an end and I'm going to scribble on the paper plate. And I'm going to put and I like to keep by the way, I do like to keep these in order according to the colors on the list, because, you know, I'm anal, and that's the way it makes it easier for me to color. So I'm going to grab one of my paintbrushes, and since this is a small area, I'm probably going to shoot for a paintbrush of this size. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my brush into the fabric medium, and I'm just going to start scrubbing where I colored on the paper plate. Now you'll notice that I've got a bit of green here, and I'm just going to come in starting top down works the best. That way it helps keep your hands out of everything. And let me get a little bit more here and just keep coloring. This is actually very easy, and that's the way I like to do it. Start out with the easy stuff first. Now, let's say maybe you want it to be a little darker. And what you're going to do is you're going to grab your block again, and you're just going to rub it where you put that little blotch of fabric medium. Set that aside. You can dip your brush in it again, rub it, and now your green will look quite a bit darker. Although apple green is so light, it's kind of hard to tell. But yes, it is definitely darker painting on here. Now, one of the things that will happen as you work in an area on the plate, it will start getting kind of mushy. The paper, you know how paper does, it gets wet, it starts rolling away. So then you can just come along and draw yourself maybe right next to it, another little area, and again, just keep dipping your brush in, getting it wet, and keep on coloring. Since this is a small area, this is my probably preferred method to get this colored. You don't really want to, oops. See, stuff like that just shows up out of nowhere. You just want to keep it from getting the little paper balls that comes along with that. Now, refrain, please, from wanting to do what I'm about ready to show you not to do, which is, oh, you're going to say, well, isn't it just easier if I take this and rub the edges? Yes, it is. I won't deny that, okay? But I will tell you that you will use up and destroy your blocks faster by doing that than if you will just try to use some of these other methods. Because now what I'm going to have to do is grab a paper towel, and I'm going to just show you this. I mean, if you are insistent on using this technique, you're going to want to wipe that clean to make sure that none of that fabric medium stays on there. Now, I have tried this. I guarantee you later on I'm going to have to scrape the fabric medium off because it does tend, whatever little bit of residual I don't get does tend to dry. So let me go back again. I'm going to just put a little bit of dark there with my fabric medium and continue coloring this. Okay, I'm just going to finish coloring. Okay, we've got that pretty well done. Now, had we wanted to do a larger area of the green, and I'm going to show you this now because I'm probably going to be using it throughout. Oh, and let me just, as a tip, okay, let me see if I can do this. Let me see. So you'll see, oh, there we go. There's the 1400 for this. Let me suggest that you don't use this end, because you want to try to preserve that number for as long as possible so that you can tell which color this is. So I'm going to scooch down here, and you can see I've used this before. It's kind of gunked up. And I'm going to grab my grater and do just exactly what I described earlier. Just grate. Now you're going to see why you need, see there, look at how much green is down there. You don't need a lot. So now all I can do is get my fabric medium in those little crumbs. And be careful when you put your brush that has crumbs on it, the crumbs will stay in the fabric medium. All of a sudden you'll start getting a tint of fabric medium. And you may want some tinted fabric medium, which we're going to try a little later on. But truly what you want to do is try to keep a clean brush with at least one pot of fabric medium. So again, we're coming back in with some darker color after the fact and filling in where I thought there was some kind of loose, some little bit of holes, and I wanted a little bit deeper green, and there we go. Now, really, this is my preferred method. Now, you're also going to see why you're going to want to have multiple plates, because this does become an issue after a while. That, yeah, you can move around the plate. And with the greens, I'm going to keep the greens probably on the same plate, because the next section we're going to do is these right here. But you definitely do not want to, say, bring in maybe your yellows or the reds, because you'll start mixing colors and you'll inadvertently get some of the crumbs from another color in there. And yeah, it will change color, which you may want to do. And in fact, let me encourage you to try that as far as being able to get different tonalities and different shades. You know, that's why I like these. These are so much more versatile in their own way versus the pencils. Okay, now what I'm going to do is, real quick, I'm going to kind of move this over, and I'm going to grab, this is the felt green, this is color number 2, and let me grab my grater, and let me pull this up. And you know, y'all, I really shouldn't be doing this over the work, but this is the only way you can see it, so keep my fingers crossed that I don't blow this off the plate. In fact, maybe sometimes it would be better just to kind of come down here and that way. But you see the crumbs are already flying off. This could be considered the disadvantage. But I get a lot of that green. And then last but not least, I'm going to pull over the Ionian green, which is the darker. And let's see which side the number is. Now look, I have got so much fabric medium on this one, it's going to be hard to find me a corner that I wouldn't have to pull away. All right, I think I've got one right here. So I'm going to put this one over here, scrape a little bit off. Don't need a lot. In fact, I probably got more than I need for all of these colors, because this is really the only, I'll have to look at my sample again. And there's not a whole lot of other green that we're going to be using in this. All right, so I'm going to set my little shaver onto the side, put my block back in its case, and then start mixing this up. Now again, I'm going to pull this off so that you can see this. And at this point in time, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to just grab, well, let's grab the ceramic coat. This way I can show you that it works just as easily as it does, as mine does. And this way I can control it because I just can put a few drops directly on there. And let me close that up and start mixing. Ah, felt green. It's one of my favorite colors of green. It's really a pretty color. Okay. And let me wash my brush out. Grab yourself a paper towel. When you finish doing this, take your paper towel and really get that excess water out of there. Then come over here and mix up your Ionian green, which is kind of a deep, sagey olive green that I really like to use as kind of a contrast. Now, the one thing I will warn you is that this stuff on the paper plate can dry out. That's why, you know, put enough fabric medium down there. Also leave enough crumbs still there that you can paint. So the instructions call for me doing every other one of these and just come in and paint. Just very easy. And don't worry about getting it into the other ones. This is kind of, oh, make sure you don't have globs. That is the thing that can happen. Make sure you don't grab globs because, and also keep a little bit of fabric medium, plain fabric medium off to the side. So if you want to get kind of a lighter color, you can do that. Because as you get towards the tip of the stem, you know, alternate back and forth. Okay, let's go to this side now. See how nice and easy this is? I'll probably be speeding this up, so I won't talk too much. Because after all, this is like watching paint dry. Ha ha ha. And by the way, rule of thumb, this is true in all kind of art mediums, should always work light to dark. Okay, now with that, I'm going to dip my brush over here in the dark and come along again and just, isn't that nice? And here's the other reason I like the blocks. You know, we'd have to, getting into these crevices with the pencil sometimes is tough. So let's make that looks a little light compared to the, now I'm in my painting mode, y'all, so my muttering. If I don't speak clearly, I beg your pardon. You can always ask me a question in the comments and I'll be happy to answer. Or text me or email me. I'm pretty accessible. The only time I'm not is when I'm traveling. But I usually get back with people as soon as I stop. So please bear that in mind if you ever have any questions. And I do like interacting with my clients because you know what? A lot of y'all are so much smarter about this stuff. You just need to learn the techniques. And that's what my goal is. Teach you techniques and let you go off and be super creative artists. Okay, so there we go. That is the first lesson. By the way, the old do as I say, not as I do. Those are green specks. I just want to show you what happens here. That if you were to turn around and start mixing that up, you will start getting, it will start changing color. And it may not be super noticeable at first, but let's say you don't get all those specks completely dissolved, then what will happen is you'll go to paint another area and all of a sudden one of those little green specks will draw a nice green line in the middle of a color that does not go well with green, and it will make your work not so pretty. So just a quick tip, just beware of that. I mean, I'm glad it happened so I could show you what not to do, because sometimes that's just as important as what to do. I am going to continue painting with the green. Now I'm sitting down, so I have no idea what this is going to look like as I color. Hopefully this is a one take, but I will certainly do more if necessary. And I've still got my palette here. Notice I still have a bunch of flakes of color. So I'm not going to switch plates or do anything different. I am going to go ahead and dip my brush into, let me get this so that you can see this. Actually, there we go. I'm going to get some more color off of the apple green. And this, what we're going to do on the stems and stuff that we're doing is we're going to lay a base coat down first of the apple green. So I particularly in these leaves right here. So I'm not super careful. I am just putting some color down. Hopefully you can all see this. And when necessary, of course, dip your brush back into the fabric medium, pull some more color off of the paper plate. This doesn't need to be super careful or you know, like every single bit of the fabric needs to be colored. What you're doing is you're just laying down a light green first. And if you remember earlier, I said that the, you know, probably most basic rule in art is always work from light to dark. I mean, you can, if you were working with opaque colors on this, you could do it the other way. And again, pardon the cat in the background. He's begging to go out. I keep trying to tell him that there's a coyote out there just waiting to have him for dinner, but he doesn't seem to get it. Well, that's where we're humans and they're cats, right? Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do these little leaves over here. And now, once I've done that, again, let me apologize. He's not happy. Once you've done this, now you can do a couple things at this point in time. Because we're again working with as much of the block as possible. You know, I'm going to come in here with the felt green and I'm just going to get a bunch of it kind of mixed up here real quick, because all I want to do now is come along and just put a little bit of it down here at the base to darken the base. Maybe a little bit up here at the top, you know, just to add a little bit of depth. There we go down there, maybe a tiny bit again up at the top. Oh, now we've got kitty wars going on. You know, I hope some of y'all are amused by all of this. This is the bad thing about running your own business. And you don't have, I do have a standalone building, but I don't mix my painting stuff with my quilting for obvious reasons. All it takes is one mess, and you will never, ever, ever mix show quilts with painting stuff. So it's got to be done inside. So, you know, you guys just get the benefit of kind of getting a little window into my personal life. So back to coloring. As you can see, I'm just putting a bit of dark down here. That gives the leaf a bit of texture. It gives it kind of a nice, just a depth. You know, you don't want to look, you know, I call this coloring book coloring, but in fact, what you really want to try to do is make this look a little bit more sophisticated than a coloring book. Okay, great. Now, the next step that we're going to do is we're going to continue with that same fern green, but this time what we're going to do is we're going to use it on the stem. So, oh, and look at that. See, I don't know if you can see that, but there's a bit of streak from where I didn't completely melt one of the bits of color from the block, but that's okay. You know, I mean, it's not bad to have the streaks. You just kind of have to work at them a bit, which certainly you can with these, with a brush. And so you're going to continue working that color down the stem. It looks a little different than, and again, just a light shade. You don't need something dark. Maybe I'll get a little bit of a darker shade. You know, you just again keep coming back to your paper plate. Those flakes of color. It's really hard to make them go away, so it's best just to go ahead and use them. Ah, there we go. Okay, now there's a stem over here. I want to do that with green, so I'm going to continue to color the same stem with that green. And then last but not least, I'm going to come in with the Ionian green, mix some of that up, get some of the darker tint out of it. Ah, this is such a wonderful color. I really do like it. And again, come in and put a little bit, you know, if you can get your, you know, you may want to use a finer paintbrush. In fact, let me do that here real quick so that you can see. You know, I've been using this thicker one right here, but now let me switch over to this so that you can see how much easier it is to get better blending. Let me get some of that nice green on this thinner paintbrush, and I'm going to come in here, right here, yeah, there we go, and put in some just shading on one side to pretend like the sun is coming in, or the lighting or whatever is causing this pumpkin to show up. You want to assume the light is coming from one direction, and so you want to put the dark color on one side, and we're doing that right here. Now this is also where, if you wanted, you could come along in with a pencil and maybe darken it up slightly. Now I know this is going to sound really weird, but I'm going to come in here with this black Prismacolor pencil, which, yes, you can use regular colored pencil, okay? The key is always using fabric medium. So just right here, notice I'm just putting just a little tiny hint of darkness, and it doesn't take away from the green. I mean, the other reason to use a colored pencil is because they're not just as strong a color as the INKTENSE pencil. So look at that. That's really giving it, doesn't take away, doesn't make it look black, because the pencil is simply just not as strong a color as the INKTENSE. Wow, that really looks great. In fact, let me carry this forward. You know, maybe put a little tiny bit as these, at these base of these leaves. Put it here, put it there. Yeah, that looks really good. So again, just trying to get it a little bit of an effect that you can appreciate more of an artistic bent. And so last but not least, along the same lines, let's go over to these little leaves right here. Now I'm not going to do the centers. My way of coloring it, according to my little script, if you will, is to keep those a different color. So I'm going to come in here and mix, and notice one thing, I'm going to just put a little bit of light coloring. I'm not going all the way. I'm just trying to get this really very light right here. I don't want that super dark green color that I was using earlier. Again, you know, y'all, I'm still working off this plate. Let me just kind of swing this over. I'm still working off the same plate of colors. So you can see it doesn't take a whole lot to be able to get this kind of color that you're looking for. Now let's kind of get a bit of a lighter color up here. And notice too, I'm kind of putting some extra fabric medium down. That too will sometimes help the color spread a little bit easier, particularly in a smaller area like this. I'm going to switch back over to that small little bitty brush so that I can get some really good light color in there. So this is a very detailed work, and I will tell you guys that this pumpkin, I would actually probably consider it not necessarily one of the Fabric 101 blocks that I teach, which is my beginning series for those who have never colored on fabric. But the ladies that I'm teaching, most of them have already taken a class, or they've got, they have had art classes before. So I feel pretty comfortable showing them some of these, what I would consider to be more refined or maybe a little bit more complex techniques than just, oops, ooh, I got a lot of chunk of color there. Now see, you always got to watch out for that. So all you have to do with something like that is come in and blend it really, really well. And that means I'm going to have to darken these up, because once you've darkened something, yeah, going back and making it lighter is just, you can do it, okay? So you can come in and you can bring in, this is white paint, and it's acrylic, and it's opaque. So if I really made a tremendous mistake inside here, yeah, I could put some white down, but boy, is it a mess to try to deal with. And let's just say that for the time being, you don't really want to go there. Maybe I'll do a quick video on that down the road, but I think for the time being, it's just going to have to be careful, you know, watch where you're placing your color. Yeah, the boo-boo pin, and I still haven't told you about it, but that's okay. It's going to make you keep watching me, because it really, truly, the boo-boo pin is something, and by the way, I'm just teasing. If you don't want to watch me, I don't blame you. I'm not a very good videographer, but I do love what I do. And hopefully I'm passing that on to others. That's my point. The boo-boo pin should always be used at the very, very last when everything is completely dry. So that's one of the reasons I haven't showed you yet.